All right, so last night it was very late at night, and I still couldn't go to sleep because I'm anxious. I'm still stressed about moving for the first time in forever. And so I was just sitting here in the dark thinking about nothing and everything at the same time. And I was watching this documentary of Japanese people living in a MAGA cafe. It was all in Japanese subtitles. And they were talking about really giving up on life because they're living in a cafe. They sit there, they work there, they sleep there in one room. And it reminded me a lot of my own circumstances. As much as I wanted to move out of the Roach Motel, I got into a situation where there's even more problems. The power here is unstable. The washer and dryer, I was told yesterday, are decorative. In fact, management told me that they would come and take it out because it worked so poorly that it wasn't viable. And when I asked them why they would do that, they said it was the old management company. The refrigerator doesn't work right. The power to parts of the house will randomly go off. The lighting in the kitchen is very bad. And how else do I put this? This place is really run down. There's peeling paint in the bathroom. The fixtures in the shower have holes in them. Like, for what you pay to live in this place is absolutely outrageous. And it's a hole. This is about as run down as an apartment can possibly get. But I've had to live in worse. I've had to endure much more hardship in my life. There's a version of me who would have walked into this place and been like, this is the best that I could ever hope for. But now I keep wondering, it's like every time you grow a little bit, you think about maybe a little more. Like, when am I going to be able to buy a new house? Well, based on my current income and my financial situation, never. But that doesn't stop us from realizing that this is being normalized in our generation to truly own nothing and be happy. All right, let's get into today's monologue. Nobody tells you how weird it feels when surviving was your only goal, and then you actually survive. Like, cool, I'm still here. Now what? I didn't plan this far ahead. I didn't dream past make it out alive because honestly, I didn't think I would. That is some of the truest statements I've ever made in my life. When you live at the bottom like I have my whole life, and you come out on the end, and you wonder, well, what am I supposed to do now? I have no life, I have no friends, I have no family, I have no reason for waking up tomorrow morning. And yet here I am. I made it. Every day that I make it one more day with my coping, with hope. But inevitably, all of us think about the rope. I don't think there's a single poor person on earth that doesn't think about the rope or the meteorite coming down and taking us all out. In fact, someone left a comment, this comment, on that video that I made a couple of days ago, where it's only poor people and losers that want the meteorite. Everyone who's a winner, rich people, happy people, people who are successful in other ways, they don't think about the meteor. Only poor people and losers. You know why? Because those other people are thriving. They're not survivors of this world like we are. And believe me, things are going to get worse. And we acknowledge this fact. Our government doesn't care about us. You are well aware of that. If you're on this channel right now, you are aware that we are completely disposable to the powers that be. Talking point number one. Nobody talks about how dreaming requires safety, stability, energy when your whole life has been about surviving, paying rent, dodging debt, protecting your peace, Dreaming feels like a luxury for people with easier lives, much easier lives. The rich people don't wake up and wonder if this is going to be the month that you get evicted or the month in which they're going to repossess your Promobile because you you just didn't make enough money to cover the cost of it. And for a lot of us who buy things on credit, like I bought a couch yesterday with a credit card because it's sad walking into this place and there's nothing. When you open the door, there's nothing there. And so when you think about that, what's the point of having space if there's nothing there? So last night I got home from work. I was feeling even more depressed than normal, and I started browsing what couches cost. And believe me, if I was going to start up a GoFundMe just to buy a couch, I would, because they're ridiculously expensive. And as I put my information into the website to buy it, I asked myself if this was a good idea. Would I be stable enough, long enough to own my first piece of furniture in my life? These aren't things that people with easy lives think about. They're trying to match the decor, put up pictures, have rugs, end tables. They're trying to build a comfortable life. People like me very rarely get the opportunity to even rest. For me, it's 7 days a week work. Work, work, work. And when you think you can't work anymore, you find the energy to work more. Because that's what it means to be poor, to be an unfortunate soul of this cruel economy. A world in which poor people are seen as one thing: labor. Talking point number two. But humans aren't designed for complete disconnection. There's a loneliness that creeps in when nobody knows you exist, when disappearing would change nothing. I stop and think about that all the time. If I didn't show up to work tomorrow, would anyone care? Probably not. My boss would probably be cheering. But for the rest of the world, people like us, we don't matter. Nobody's going to notice that we didn't show up at work, or I wasn't at Kroger's to give that tired cashier a ride home because she didn't want to have to walk a mile in 100-degree heat. No one notices us. Poor people are invisible. We're the invisible masses that create society because we do all the work. Rich people don't work. Rich people don't dig holes. They don't wash dishes. They don't clean the floors. They don't scrub your toilet. They don't fix their own servers. They don't fix their own desktops. They don't set up their own monitors. They don't run wiring under desks on their hands and knees. Those are the jobs for people like me that are, and I hate to say it because I went up to the uh, executive building this week, actually several times. One time it was a top executive that was sitting in an office, like a temporary office, and he had called two or three other executives to ask them if he could get help with setting up his computer because he was visiting from another state. And I got three phone calls from three executives asking me if I could be there now. At first, I tried to brush it off because I didn't want to have to deal with this problem. But inevitably, it came down to there's no one else. In that situation, if I didn't exist, that just would have meant that someone else would have had to go there and help people. But at the end of the day, if you're not rich, you don't matter. Talking point number three. Some people never had the chance to figure out what they want because they've been too busy surviving and what they didn't choose. We never ask poor people or burnt out people, what would you dream of? If survival wasn't the first step, what would you be doing? For me, if I wasn't constantly in survival mode and working 7 days a week, I'd actually like to do things, be actually capable of taking a long vacation without worrying about money, working only a couple days a week because I didn't have to worry about it. When you're stuck like this, when survival is everything, it means that you're constantly working. Survival can be correlated directly with financial success. And if your first job doesn't provide you sufficient money to live a comfortable life, and you need to have that second, third, or even fourth job, then you're completely focused on one thing. And that's, what am I going to do next in order to make another dollar? And that's a problem of all poor people, is that we're so focused on being able to afford food and rent that we can't stop thinking about it. Survival is always going to be the number one reason why the proletariat lives. We live to pay the landlord. We live to give away all of our money to all of our debt, because that's what human beings do. We just go into debt in order to live. There's no way out of getting out of that debt. The world was designed to extract the wealth from the poorest people, from the grocery store to the liquor store to the pawn shop. All of these places prey on people who don't have money. And it's a sad sense that we are just a byproduct of a system that needs us for labor. And then just because we want to survive takes away all of our money, because that's what it does. I keep thinking about rich people complaining about having to pay high taxes. Can you imagine being a poor person where the taxes, you're not just paying taxes in the sense that you're giving the money back to the IRS. You're paying the human tax, the survivor's tax. And that means that nearly 100% of your paycheck every month just goes to be able to survive. How would you like that, rich people? That everything you made every month was required that you use it just to be able to continue to exist. It's a sad place to be, but it is the world we are in right now, where we can't get out of the way of being poor. And being poor is expensive. And when you look at what poor people make comparatively to what they need to spend, the ratio is completely skewed in the wrong direction. There's no money left over for a savings account. There is no time left over for leisure. It's either sleep or you're working, or you're sleeping while you work. Either way, this world wasn't designed for people without money. And it never will change, not without a proactive approach to making that change happen. So we've made it to our final talking point. In a world designed to break you, exhaust you, exploit you, sometimes waking up and eating breakfast is a success story. Dreams are beautiful, but survival is powerful, and it deserves respect too. Anyone who doesn't respect the grind of poor people is a sociopath, meaning that policymakers, the government, rich people, billionaires, people who've decided to laugh at America over its tariffs. Corporations like Nike, who've just plainly said, no, we're not interested in making things here. Any company that has just turned their nose up at America and said, you know what, go screw yourself, Americans. We're not bringing our companies there. And that's going to be something that's going to profoundly hurt tens of millions of people. Because once the companies that are here have to raise prices in order to pay their American workers, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in every aspect of your life. Your clothes are going to have to last longer. More and more of us. You know what market is going to turn up in the next couple of months? The thrift stores. Because they're not going to make more. And you're not going to be able to afford the prices anyway. So we're going to have to take a turn. For poor people, it's going to be used clothes. For how long, I don't know. But at least a solid 4 years, people. And no one thinks about what that means to people like myself. If you can't walk into a Walmart and buy really cheap pair of shoes because everything's made in the Asian countries. Well, the American version of that same product is going to cost you a buttload. And that's unfortunate because no one told us exactly how dangerous it was for what we did in November. Every one of you holds the responsibility of what happened. And you may say, well, I just didn't care. I didn't vote. I didn't like either candidate. Well, making decisions like that has consequences. And you're feeling those consequences. And you're going to be feeling them deeply. Deeply, like fleece showing up at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And you're going to understand that fleece is going to get rough. But believe me, your paycheck is going to buy even less than it buys now. They're not going to raise wages because you're broke. They're going to keep them exactly where they're at, and you're going to have to figure it out. Just like with every other aspect of life, the proletariat is always expected to figure it out, regardless of the pain and suffering that's inflicted upon them. Remember, this is being inflicted onto them intentionally, and they have to figure out how they're going to deal with it. I personally don't know. That's why I was so apprehensive about buying that first piece of furniture, because I know I can't afford it. And I don't know how long I'll be able to afford to sustain this life. I mean, remember, we're all just one paycheck away from being homeless, because we're always so much closer to being homeless than we'll ever be to being rich and well off. Being rich and well off, I think, is something that happens way before you even come into this world. And once you're conceived, right? Once Johnny Sixpack is pumping your mom, Susie Rottencrotch, behind the Taco Bell, and you're conceived, that's when the decision's been made on whether or not you're going to live a comfortable life. And for most of us, it's going to be the worst kind of life. It's going to be a life of survival. It's going to be a life of fear. It's going to be a life where you're constantly looking up at the things you can never own. But that's where I'm going to leave this video. I hope you guys saw it. I will link I'll put a link to that Japanese video that caused me to create the script today down in the comments. It's actually fairly dystopian, seeing people living in an arcade. But I will talk to you guys in the next video. I've got to go work out.